Let's now start our review on classes and objects. I would like to go over some slides with you, and then I will start developing our project from scratch on Eclipse. This is the link you should really go to really check out the complete list of tutorial videos for our review. Alternatively, you can simply go back to the 2030 website, and then you will see under week 1 and week 2. So this is the tutorial videos playlist. If you click on that, at the time of recording, I haven't got anything yet. But when you are watching this particular tutorial videos, everything should be there already. You should see some updates. But this is where you can check out the complete list. You can also click on this link for the iPad notes that I actually write on the tutorial videos. And this is the optional but highly recommended tutorial series I mentioned from 1022 Winter 21. And these are the breakdowns I actually mentioned before. Okay. And then these are the 2 written notes. I'm just including their links again, just to emphasize and for your convenience. All right, so what will be the learning outcomes for this review tutorial series for the coming 2 weeks? Number 1, we want to review what object orientation really is. That's something I would like to reiterate together with you. And also, we want to talk about classes as templates versus objects as instances. So it's a very crucial distinction you have to make. You usually create one template for one class, but from that class, you can create as many instances as you like. And we'll talk about how you can create attributes, constructor, methods, accessor, or mutator. I hope you still remember the definition. If you have forgotten, we'll review them. And also how you use the keyword this. And for objects, we want to know how you can use a new keyword to create a new objects, and also how you can use a dot notation to call methods, or to actually refer to attributes within a class, and also how you can invoke methods. And you should really identify what the context objects are. If you are not too sure about this term, just stay tuned with the tutorial videos. And most importantly, we should also review about the phenomenon of reference aliasing. Okay, think about try to recall what the definition is for reference aliasing, but we'll get there later in the video. Okay, and then we'll talk about reference type attributes, either single valued or multi-value. Multi-value specifically, we want to use a primitive array to build everything from scratch. It's a very important technique I would like to emphasize, not just at the first year, but also in the second year. We want to build everything foundational from scratch. And also, we'll talk about non-static versus static variables. What does it really mean when you put the static keyword in front of the declaration of attributes? What does it really mean? We'll also review that towards the end of the tutorial series. And if time permitted, I will also talk about helper methods, just a way for you to minimize code duplicates, which is a very sound software engineering practice. In this video, I would like to emphasize the idea about separation of concerns. Each concern will be turned into a package on the Eclipse tool, which we'll see later. But let's now go over a little bit of theory. So in your EECS2030 or 1021, you have a model component which contains one or more Java classes. For example, person, student management system, students, or course record, you name it. And how can we see the effects of the model classes? Once you encode the logic, how can you know if the logic is actually correct? You would like to visualize the logic. That might be the most engaging way of doing this. So in your first year, we simply got another class that would manipulate the model classes. So here I said manipulation by meaning object creations and also method call. So these are the 2 things we'll actually see a lot in on Eclipse for the later part of the tutorial series. So we have controller, and in the case of 1022, we may have Android app controller for BMI calculation, and in 1022, we may have a controller for LED lights lightning. So how do we see the effects? This will typically be seen on some connected physical devices. It could be tablets or the LED lights that's actually programmed in your fidget board. And we also got a tester, so this will move closer to what we want to achieve at the higher level. At the current level, that's more advanced. So we got, for example, person tester, bank tester. So there are 2 kinds of testers that you may have seen already in the first year. Number one is about so-called console tester. So whatever you can actually manipulate your objects in the main method, where you do object creation and method calls, and you can output the effects to the console. So that's a console application. The other one is for unit testing, in which case we try to create JUnit test cases, and we try to compare, or we try to put assertions and try to compare between expected value and actual values from method call. If you took 1022 with me in the past winter, this will be what I emphasize in that course, and I will be consistent for the second year. If you didn't really see much JUnit testing before, now will be the time to learn it. Okay, so in Java, the big picture is we may define more than one classes for the modeling purpose, right? It's a model. So you will see an explicit package whose name is model later in the Eclipse. And each class may contain more than one method. It can be constructor, it can be accessor, it can be mutator, or it can be helper method. And what's really object-oriented programming, or OOP, in Java? So you gotta define classes for templates. And each template can be instantiated for as many times as you like into objects. And also at the runtime, we want to manipulate those objects, which will be by creating objects and calling methods on the objects. And the context object idea will be very important, which I will review a little bit later. And finally, we can simulate at the runtime the interactions between real-life entities. So if you got multiple classes, they might have some association or relationship between each other. That's something we'll see for sure in the review tutorial. All right, so that's about the slides I would like to go over. So now let me turn into Eclipse. So the assumption is you have already installed Eclipse and Java runtime on your machine. If you got any trouble, you can refer to the pre-study material, the installation instruction, or you can get in touch with me. In the worst case, if you cannot get it to work on your machine, you can also use the remote labs on the EECS website. Okay, you can see the links from the course website. Okay, so now I would like to create a workspace together with you for our tutorial series. So I can, let's say on my desktop, I'm simply just going to create a new folder over here. Let me call that workspace. And it will be optional if you want to commit this particular workspace into your GitHub if you want to, but just remember it has to be private, right? After the course is finished, you may want to make it public, but when the course is running, you have to make it private. Okay, so that'll be the workspace, and now I would like to launch Eclipse. So I'm just going to click on the Eclipse icon. Okay, Eclipse is here. Whichever version you have installed, but I recommend just install the latest version. And just make sure you browse to the desktop. Well, in case you store in the desktop, but you can store your workspace anywhere. Just make sure you browse to wherever you store the workspace, right? You're going to choose a workspace. Let me just show it to you. Browse, and then I can choose desktop. And then I can go to workspace, right? That's been chosen already, and say open. Okay, and then I'll say launch. As soon as it's launched, so this will be what you will see by default. I can do some setup together with you, but I would suggest this is the part you should really refer to the introductory videos I spoke about in the earlier video. For example, you see this is the tutorial series I created for 1022, right? This one here. And you may want to refer to week number 1. I cannot mention every detail in the review tutorial, but I'll refer you to this particular week from earlier to actually learn more about how to set up your work environments in Eclipse. I'll relay that to you if you find it necessary. Okay, so let's now go back to our Eclipse. I can simply say height. Okay, and I would recommend I simply you can see the outline over here, right? The outline panel. I'll simply click on that and then drag it to just right beside the Package Explorer. You can see now I got Package Explorer and I got outline. Okay, Package Explorer is for you to oversee the all the packages and classes of your projects, and outline is for a particular class. And for the button here, I have problems. I don't need a Java doc for now, so I can close it. And also, I don't need a decoration. I can also close it. I'll only leave problems over here. Oh, and also console. How do I show the console? So what you can do is you should go to your menu, go to Window, and go to Show View. And then you can go to console over here. Okay, so now you also got console here, right? That's a very easy setup. And let me also show to you, if you don't really like a dark theme over here, which is by default on my computer, you can also turn it back to the classic one. So what you can do is, again, go back to Eclipse and go to Preferences, and then you can go under General, and then go to Appearance. And currently it's dark, I can simply choose the classic, right? And then I will say Apply. Okay, that's good, it's much clearer. And then I want to do one more thing, which is about the font size. I can simply type on the search bar here, font. Go to colors and fonts, and there are two things I would like to adjust. One is under debug. You can go to here, the console fonts. If I want to print the objects into the console, I want the size to be visible. So for me only, I can double click on that. You can choose whatever family that you like and whatever size you like. For me, I want to choose 24, and then the font I like is Monaco. Okay, it's there we go, Monaco. Okay, and then I would say Apply. And one more thing I'd like to adjust, which will be under Java. I will go to the Java editor text fonts, and I will choose also choose 24 and Monaco. I can double click on that. I will say 24, and then I will go to Monaco over here. Okay, so I'm done with the basic setup, but you can definitely play with the tool of Eclipse. If you actually are used to maybe IntelliJ in your first year, you're required to adapt to Eclipse for 2030. Okay, and a restart is required for the theme change to take full effects, but I'm not going to restart to waste your time. I'll do that a little bit later. Okay, so now what I will do is I want to create, let's go to Package Explorer and create a project. So we can say create a Java project. You might have an option here available to you, or I can simply just right click on the package Explorer. If it doesn't work, you can always go to Eclipse file here. Sorry, you can always go to File, New, Java Projects. Okay, and then let's give a name. So let's say the one we want to do is an Apple Shop. I will describe exactly what the problem is for the Apple Shop in order for us to solve programmatically. I'll talk about the problem in the next video, but for this video, I just want to set it up. So let's say Apple Shop, and then you can choose the most recent JRE. In my case, it's 16. If it's maybe somewhere between 8 and 16. That's okay. Just choose that. And then I would say next. Okay, nothing special. I would say finish. And just remember, you don't want to create any module-info.java. If you took 1022 with me in the tutorial videos, I always mention that don't really create this module-info.java file. You will write yourself into trouble. Okay, just say don't create. Okay. So now we got our Apple Shop over here, and if I go back to my desktop, you can see under Workspace, under Apple Shop, right? That's a project folder, and I got bin. This usually stores the bytecode translated from your Java source. You don't need to worry. It will be generated automatically. What you should really pay attention to is under the source, SRC. And currently simply just empty. As we add in packages, they will appear as subfolders. As we add classes, they will appear as .java files. Okay. Let me go back here. And I want to set up by adding 3 packages, and it will be very similar to your future laboratory exercises and also programming tests. It will be very similar. The first one I would like to create is called model, and the model package will store all the will store one or more Java classes encoding the business logic. We'll see more details later in the series. So I will say model over here, and the second package I want to have is console apps. Console apps. Please make sure you spell it correctly, right? Console apps, CONSOLE underscore apps. Okay. And the naming convention, by the way, for Java packages should be compound words separated by separated by underscore, and should be all lower cases, right? And finish, and we got one more, which will be JUnit tests. New package JUnit For the review tutorials, I will focus more between these two packages. I might show you some example in console apps just to review what you learned in the first year, but the focus for the second year should be JUnit tests and also model. Okay, let me emphasize that. So we got these three packages. So this will be the separation of three concerns. Concern number one, business logic in the model. Concern number two, about printing out the programming effects to the console. Concern number three will be to compare return values, actual return values from model methods versus its expected value. So three concerns. And let me talk about these three concerns very briefly. Okay, so let me just switch to my iPad. The three concerns are as follows, and I will try to maybe revisit this diagram maybe again later in the tutorial. Let me just mention that to you so you can keep in mind. So we have three packages. We got model, we got JUnit tests, and also we got console application. Okay, and for model, let me use maybe orange. So for the model package, is really to store one or more classes, right? There will be classes and methods. That's exactly what we will do in the later video. And also for the methods, it can be constructor, can be accessor, can be mutator. And if you recall, in Java, constructors must have the same name as the class name. And for accessors, they must return certain value. Can be integer, or it can be primitive type, or it can be reference type. That's also something we'll review later. And also we got mutators, which has no return statements, which means they are void, right? If you remember, the keyword is called void. And it will contain no print statement, which means under this particular model package, under no circumstances should you ever put system.out.println statements. System.out.println is only for console application classes when you want to print something to the console. Okay, so speaking of console apps, let's review that quickly. So typically you will have the main method inside your console application class. You may have more than one console application classes, but each one of them should have a main method. Whenever you have the main method, so that means it's a single entry point of execution. You can choose which class with the main method to execute. I'll show that to you later. And then you can read input from the keyboard by using the scanner class, right? You may have seen this class before in the first year, but I will also show that to you later. You can call the methods from the model. Of course, you can also create objects from the classes in the model. And you will produce output to the console. And this is the only place where you will use system.out.println statements. And you can and it will contain no return statements for the main method, right? Finally, I would like to emphasize the importance of unit testing. Okay, so unit testing, which means for every model class that we create over here, one model class, two model classes, three model classes, for each model class, we should really test them as a units, each one of them. And for the unit testing, it's really important to distinguish between actual values from method calls versus the expected value that we actually expect from the method calls, right? And also for the methods, we're going to call methods from the model package, and also we're going to do assertions. There are several assertions I'll review together with you. For example, assert equals, assert true, assert false, assert same. Okay, so these are the common ones. And there should be no print statements in the JUnit test, JUnit classes. The only way we try to check for correctness is by using assertions in the JUnit tests package, right? So just have this overall picture about how we separate between the three concerns. And one more thing to highlight, which I did put on the notes. JUnit tests over here is one manipulator for the model. That's why we got this particular arrow over here. And console apps is just another manipulator that will actually create objects and call methods on objects from the model package, right? So that's why we got arrow in this particular direction. All right, so that's about what I want to speak about for this current video. And just remember, we got three packages over here, and starting from the next video, we will actually speak about a motivating problem and also to review the process for object orientation, and then we'll gradually add classes into these three packages.